Hello, everybody. I'm Harald Drager. I will chair this session about international certification. And we will have three presentations in this session. I will first tell you about TIEMS certification and the status of this and which future plan we have going into a concrete offer of international certification. Then Professor Vinod Chandra Menon, he will address how do we reach out with certification internationally and actually get a group of certified people. His title is Emerging Trends in International Certification in Emergency Management. The last speaker is Larry Porter, and he is concerned of quality of education, which is again the basis for certification and these two will come after me, and then we will have a discussion at the end. So please post your comments or questions during all three presentations. I try to be short such that we have time for doing a discussion at the end, because I think certification, it is my baby now, and I will tell you a little bit the background, why we have developed it, the stage it is in, and how we are doing with this and our future plans. It's a brief introduction of what is our certification, which we launched actually last year. We have then had further development this year, and we actually now have two types of certification, which is TQC and TQAC. The first one, TIEMS Qualification Certification, and the other one, TIEMS Qualification Associate Certification. I will explain the background of both of them. I told you about our motivation in the opening speech I had, so I won't go through that, but I will tell you a little bit about the development, because it's interesting, because it's been on in TIEMS for quite a long time. And the reason for that is both we work, all that has been done with this development is actually voluntary involvement by a lot of TIEMS people. Actually, the idea to start with an international certification in TIEMS came about when we had an annual conference in Korea in 2006. And since then, around 300 experts from more than 40 countries have over time been consulted during this development. And we have had 3 workshops, the last annual conferences. We started in Kyiv, then we tried to narrow in and have a concrete proposal. This was in 2017. In Manila, we followed up with more, then we had gone one step more. And I would like to compliment Sandro Bologna, who was behind this and presented a more structure of our certification. And then in Seoul, in Manila was 2018, and in Seoul in 2019, we had a concrete proposal, which we launched in 2020, and I will tell you more about that. But we also had 8 test candidates from different countries to give us feedback. Would this be valuable? Will this actually meet the requirements of the market? And they gave us a valuable feedback, which changed the whole concept over time. And well, as soon as we launched the certification, which we call TQC, we got applicants from people that really didn't have any experience with emergency management. So we thought we need to also give these people an opportunity. They have good education. So we introduced TQAC, which was than for those with proper education in emergency management, but was lacking practical experience. I will go fast and brief through the requirements for both. But what is it for whom? TQC is a certification for individual emergency manager with a nationally recognized professional certification, or other individuals with documented competence and experience, practical or academic, in international emergency and disaster management. TQAC is a certification for individuals with proper education in emergency management, but who are lacking the practical experience as required for TQC. Both of them only certify knowledge and competences about international standards, requirements, and best practices necessary to create an international common understanding among those working with emergency and disaster management internationally. And we believe that this can promote global competence in emergency management, share best practices, support international collaboration, and also lead to an international common language, knowledge, and understanding of emergency and disaster management. And with this, working towards maybe a standard over time. It's a simple process. Looking from this slide, there is an application, go through a compliance where all the candidates have to upload experience, background, etc. If they are found compliant, they go through an examination, and then if they pass the examination, they are certified. They get their diploma and they get awarded on TIEMS website, so everybody can read about them, know who they are and their background. For TQCM, we have certain prerequisites. It goes to education, participation, contribution, and competence. So I won't read all of it. This is also posted on our website. But education is important. Participation, namely that the candidate is required to have at least 3 years of experience as a first responder, volunteer, educator, leader, or other activity, practical or academic. And contribution, at least 5 publications, participation as a leader, or teaching in emergency management. Please see that education, we talk about 1 or more of the following. For contribution, also 1 or more of the following. And at least competence. They also have to show competence in 7 areas of emergency management: international perspectives, preparedness, prevention and mitigation, predictions and early warning, emergency operations, public warning, search and rescue, and recovery and reconstruction. And we have the TQC and TQAC code of conduct, which they also have to adhere to when they do the examination. As you see for the TQAC, the requirements are the same on education, but we are not asking for experience, but also they have to show that they have competence in the 7 areas of emergency management. You find this on the website, so I don't want to go in detail of all of it. But here is everything we do on this certification goes online. And we have a platform we call the TQAC platform, where there is a header where tell about what this is about, and that they have to be aware of, namely the presentation I do, so they know what they are going into, but also that they agree to TIEMS code of conduct on TQC and TQAC. There is a general section with personal data on the applicant. Then they have what I've said. We have different things. They can do a TQC, TQAC application. This means we put in their education, experience, and motivation, and it will be then up to the boards of TQC, TQAC to decide if they are eligible for TQC or TQAC certification. Later on, they may, if they are certified with TQAC, they might be later, when they have experience enough, upgrade this to TQC. So there is a section for that, and also a recertification section, because the TQC, they need to recertify after 3 years. All this is in the application form where they apply, so everything goes online. So how do we look at the applicants? We have established actually 3 boards, and plus a board called the TIEMS Academy Board. We have a certification board which value the application to see, can this candidate continue and with the possibility to be certified. If so, we give the candidate access to the TQC, TQAC platform, and they upload their experience, background, etc. And this will be evaluated by the compliance board. When the compliance board find them compliant, they will be turned over to the examination board, which will set them up for an examination. And if they pass the examination, the certification board will award a diploma for being certified. Here is a list of what the TQC applicant has to upload. I mostly told you about that, about a curriculum vitae, which address contact information, work experience, education and training, language skills, and other important information. And also copies of diplomas, etc. And one important thing, a competence area summary, where they will demonstrate knowledge in the 7 competence area. Concerning the TQAC, do mostly the same, but they need only to demonstrate knowledge in 3 of the following 7 competence areas. And this is a platform, what we call the web platform, which is made on the Moodle, and they get there when they're uploaded. They get access to the platform, they find more information, the candidate certification guide, examination guide, and they have to answer the examination questions. And the boards, they can involve and follow what do the candidate upload. They can advise the candidate, so he will not be left alone, but will be advised all the way towards his or her certification. We have also established, as I told you, a TIEMS Academy. Here you find some academy contains today educational material and programs from TIEMS international events. We have also developed own courses, and we have an international network which can provide courses, and we also link them to relevant information teaching material. And the idea is that TIEMS Academy over time will provide more background information. But the candidate himself, he will not be taught by anyone, but he is self-learning and will get access to all this information. But whenever he needs help, he can ask and get that help. I come to the most difficult thing, and that is examination, because you have now attended the conference and you know emergency management is absolutely everything. How do we test that the candidate can be certified in international emergency management? Because this is a wide field. What we have done, we have said, okay, we have picked at this time 4 areas with questions, both both multiple choice question and essay question on 4 areas: international perspectives, and we lead them to the background material. Sendai framework, same, lead them to the background material. ISO standards and Interag framework. So these are the 4 areas they will be tested in. And in order for them to be able to do the examination from wherever they are, we are introducing proctoring. We have made an agreement with a company called Proctor-Free, which monitor the candidate and also his screen and what he does during examination. So we know he's not using any help, or he is doing things according to our code of conduct. They get the certification, different one for each of them. And then I will come to tell you, we have so far certified 8 people which are in TIEMS TQAC charter members. And 2 of them will speak after me, namely Larry Porter and Vinod Menon. And you see these people are from different parts of the world. And if you go to the website, you can find their diploma, but also the background, so you see what their qualifications. We still have not any TQAC charter members, but we have today 6 people in the pipeline. Out of that, we have 3 for TQC, and we have 3 for TQAC, because they have started their certification. So we hope to get them through soon as possible. And it's a timeline for this. This is showing how they have, when they have put in the application, we say they have 6 months to put up their documentation. And when the documentation is found compliant, they also have an examination period of 3 months. If they fail the first examination, they can do a retrial without any cost. And totally, we believe that maximum 12 months for doing certification is a proper time for people, because I believe people have other jobs as well. One of the requirements on economy is that they have to be TIEMS members. So before they start, they have to be TIEMS members. Second thing, there is a certification fee and an examination fee. We also have to pay $50 to Proctor-Free for monitoring the students. And in this year, 2021, we actually is offering a 50% discount. So for those of you who find this of interest, please start your process in December, and you will enjoy these discounts. And also, we are able to give a scholarship to those coming from transition economy countries if the economy is not so good, because we try to get as many through this to have an international group of certified professionals. So these are the 5 steps, as I told you, with link to the different things. I jumped this one because you find all these files on TIEMS website, and you'll also find who is chairing the different boards we have. Thomas Robertson, he chaired the TQCA, the compliance board. I myself chair the certification board. Chandra Bologna, who was actually instrumental in concretizing the certification, he do the examination board. And Roman Tandlich is the chair of TIEMS Academy board. And both those who know will speak, they are vice chair of, they have been through the certification, and they will help us further develop this. And Larry Porter is vice chair of the examination board, and Vinod Menon is vice chair of the certification board. So I don't want to take more time, so there will be a lot of time for, there are one in the chat I see, that's quite good. I will now introduce Vinod Menon. He will talk about emerging trends in international certification in emergency management and concentrate on how do we reach out internationally, that there is a group certified which communicate in the same language. Vinod Menon, he has been on before. I will put some key things on his CV, bio, on the chat, so you will find him there, but I don't want to spend the time. He is a very professional, and yes, he was elected our regional director for Asia yesterday in our AGM. Please, Professor Vinod Menon, please, the floor is yours. Please use 20 minutes so we save some time for these questions.
Thank you. Thank you. So I would like to basically look at the role of emergency management professionals in getting certified through an international certification in emergency management from TIEMS, the International Emergency Management Society. So if you really look at emergency management professionals who are multidisciplinary, professionals with different skill sets, they are humanitarian assistance workers, humanitarian aid workers, first responders from the fire and emergency services, also representatives of civil society organizations, police, and armed forces, paramilitary forces, and various other organizations, including various stakeholder groups and corporate executives, etc. And there is this network called ALNAP based in UK, which estimated in 2008 that a number of humanitarian aid workers, in the world, were at that time in 2008 were 210,800 people, mostly working in NGOs and UN agencies and donor organizations, etc. And there is an article which was published in 2008 by Stoddard, Hammer, and Di Domenico, which mentioned approximately 595,000 aid workers from development organizations. So actually, even this number is very small. In effect, there would be probably a few million people working in the field of disaster management and emergency management, if you include all the first responders working in civil defense, home guards, fire and emergency services, police, and other organizations which are responding, including armed forces, paramilitary forces, etc. And it was also estimated that this number would be growing annually at about 6%. And based on the growth of educational institutions teaching disaster management, emergency management, conflict studies, environmental sciences, social work, psychology, etc., it can be estimated that the number of people who are actually working in this field is really very large. So we really see that there is this, large number of people who are working in humanitarian assistance field as humanitarian assistance practitioners, aid workers, first responders, doctors, nurses, paramedics, emergency medical technicians, ambulance and blood bank staff, social workers, psychologists, civil engineers, structural engineers, geotechnical engineers, computer scientists, data scientists, modelers, architects, geoinformatics specialists, meteorologists and climate scientists, government officials and elected representatives, corporate executives, staff of NGOs and donor organizations, media professionals, you name it. You find that almost every sector, the people are now working in emergency management, and COVID-19 has shown us this, that there is a need for all professionals, all stakeholder groups, including elected representatives, government officials and others, to also understand and work in the field of emergency management and disaster management. So there is a need for capacity building, and it is becoming more challenging. The sector is becoming more challenging. It's multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and there is a need for understanding that emerging complexities in disaster typologies. Anything can happen anytime, anywhere. And there is a need to be prepared. And we cannot anymore solve today's problems with yesterday's solutions. And that is where, the kind of certification in emergency management is becoming important. And it is becoming everybody's collective responsibility. And all disaster management professionals and emergency management practitioners need to have competencies to prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters, climate change, and extreme events. And many universities are conducting academic programs in disaster management, emergency management, conflict studies, etc. And we also have many social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, people who really feel that psychosocial support and mental health care is becoming very important. Institutions and professional networks like International Association of Emergency Managers, IAEM, and the International Emergency Management Society, TIEMS, are two institutions offering certification in emergency management. And I understand that Dr. Larry Porter, who is going to speak, in this session along with me and Harald, is also certified as a certified emergency manager from IAEM. They offer the CEM, the Certified Emergency Managers Certification. So the International Association of Emergency Managers started in 1952 as the US Defense Council, Civil Defense Council, and it became the National Coordinating Council of Emergency Managers, NCCEM, in 1985, and the IAEM, International Association of Emergency Managers, in 1997. It established an International Development Committee, IDC, in 1999, followed by the International Association of Emergency Manager Canada, IAEM Canada, IAEM Europa, IAEM Oceania, IAEM Asia, and IAEM Italy. And IAEM launched courses like Principles of Emergency Management and certificate programs like CEM, Certified Emergency Managers, and Associate Emergency Managers, AEM. They have certified 3,092 Associate Emergency Managers and CEMs as reported in the website iaem.org. And they have also revised the application fees from $415 to members and $625 for non-members. And recertification fees are revised to $265 for members and $345 for non-members. And it's very important for us to understand that this certification, international certification in emergency management, is necessary also for professional understanding and also for career growth of the people. And there are many countries where people have actually taken this certification from IAEM. And TIEMS was established in 1993 in the US, in Washington, DC, and as a formal global forum for education, training, and certification in emergency and disaster management. And TIEMS organizes international conferences, workshops, and exhibitions, webinars now with Capacity Building International, and they undertake research and technology development projects, convenes task force groups of experts and from the international group of experts, and hosts the TIEMS Academy, providing international education, training, and certification programs. And TIEMS has chapters in Benelux and China, Finland, France, India, Iraq, Italy, Japan, Korea, Middle East and North Africa, Nigeria and West Africa, Philippines, Romania, South Africa, USA, and Ukraine. And a chapter in Australia is in progress. And TIEMS conducts 2 programs for international certification, as was explained by Harald: TQC for qualified emergency management professionals and TQAC for those aspiring to work in the field of emergency management as associates. This is shown by Harald, and so the areas for doing the certification after submitting an application and ensuring compliance to the criteria for eligibility, and finally taking the examination and then getting the certification awarded. And this was also shared by Harald in terms of what are the competence areas. And the way in which this is actually getting recognized. So this is also available on the TIEMS website, TIEMS.org and TIEMS.info. You'll be able to see these details. And we would encourage, those of you who are TIEMS members to also undertake this certification of TQC. And those who are actually new to the field and who would like to enter the field of emergency management as practitioners would also like to qualify for the TQAC as associates in international certification. And so we have this proctoring, and I have gone through this process, and I find that this is a very challenging experience. And also, if you really look at the website, the TIEMS website, and see all the material which is available, where TIEMS has had international conferences, 28 of them across the years, and we find that from 1994 to 2020, except for the last year when it was actually conducted as a conference virtually. And, we are having this opportunity for this interaction virtually. It will be useful to go through this process. And as Harald mentioned, there are 8 of us who have completed this process and got certified as TQC charter members. We would encourage all those who are interested to participate in various TIEMS events in the TIEMS Academy and participate in webinars, attend the webinars, and also address the webinars if you have the interest in addressing specific problems and discuss issues. And I would like to take this opportunity also to encourage faculty members teaching emergency management and disaster management to also look at participating in various activities, including the faculty development programs. And I have requested Harald and the senior executives on the board to also consider faculty development programs. And I hope that this will be an opportunity for improving our own understanding. And as many of the presentations we have seen today and yesterday and day before, there is a need for improving our own understanding of emerging trends. And, we need to be professionalizing the sector. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Menon. This next one is Larry Porter, and he will address education. I just have to take up the title. And the title of Larry Porter is Validation of Quality Emergency Management Academic Programs through Assessment and Accreditation. And this is a very important subject. So, because we need to teach properly and the right things. And I like to mention that Larry has also been very contributive with references to material in TIEMS guide to the certification. So the floor is yours. I will put Larry's brief CV in the chat, so you will find it there. So we spare some time. Floor is yours, Larry.
Thank you very much. The title has been explained. The history of work is parallel to disasters. We didn't start education about emergency management until we found what we needed to learn more in order to respond effectively. So we have seen the maturation of training, of education and experience, and there is a difference between training and education. And work in the field will give you experience. The primary attributes for getting hired in a job in emergency management is primarily, still, historically, experience. And hiring emergency managers, hiring people under them, would like to see them trained in the field, either fire background or search and rescue or emergency management services, something, as a preference over education. And they will find, I'll explain later, that the training is frequently associated with their local state in the United States, showing that they understand emergency management within the state. So that'd be a state certification. So this talk is about the education process more than the certification process. So what are the personal attributes that hiring people like to see? They like to see letters. They like to see indications that education in the field and training in the field shows in advance that the person has knowledge of the field. I went to the website for the higher education program of FEMA, and in August saw that there were 330 emergency management programs. They are also tracking Homeland Security programs, and they're tracking the certificates offered, the associates, the bachelor's, the master's, and the doctoral degrees. The field of the 330 is programs, not institutions. And these programs have been developed primarily autonomously. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has not dictated what should be in any school's emergency management program. Similarly, the Homeland Security programs. So they have said, the school has identified a person that they want to be the director of the program and said, design something, get us going in emergency management education. Consequently, the variety across the nation, and indeed across the world, is all over the map, if you'll pardon the pun. There is a wide range of instructed content and rigor. That is the curriculum involved and what is instructed in emergency management and the number of credit hours required. Ultimately, though, the same degree is awarded, a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science in emergency management. But a student that goes to a school that offers a program which requires, for example, 12 credit hours of core content in emergency management versus the student who goes to a school that requires 45 or 60 credit hours in emergency management, the students both graduate with a degree, a Bachelor of Science in emergency management, but look at the difference between the students learning in the field. I asked a fellow instructor or educator, Dr. Sandra Smith at Arkansas Tech, and we discussed it. She's been involved in TIEMS for some time, and I'll explain TIEMS. And she had some university grad students who were able to take some time, and they did a survey of emergency management programs on the website data. I got about 50 usable school data from the college list of, and again, the 330 programs is not the same as the number of schools, that is colleges or universities offering. So you see that I identified from this 50 that there were 6 schools that had 12 credit hours of emergency management to offer a degree. Now, a bachelor's degree in emergency management is most accepted as 120 credit hours. Now, those credit hours range from English and math and whatever, ethics, a wide variety of programs, depending on whether it's an arts degree or a science degree. And so you see the numbers, and down at the end on the right, you see that there are 2 schools offering in excess of 60 credit hours, Arkansas Tech being one of them. They're one of the oldest programs offering emergency management education in the nation. They have done very well in maintaining their standards. So KIEMS was a discussion amongst educators in emergency management that were attending FEMA-sponsored at the Emergency Management Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland, an annual symposium for higher education program directors and instructors. And the discussion started more than 10 years ago, more than 15 years ago, And they said, well, we need to establish some minimum standards. And they said, yes, well, let's get together and talk about it. And they talked about it and nothing happened. And they talked about it and nothing happened year after year. So they finally formed a nonprofit organization, which the latest version, if you will, is KIEMS, Council for the Council for the Accreditation of Emergency Management and Homeland Security Education. And we have discussed and established standards, minimum standards for what we consider quality credit hours requirements for emergency management degree. So a minimum of 24 credit hours of emergency management content, core emergency management, talking about response, recovery, mitigation, risk assessment, vulnerability assessment. The range of topics in emergency management, as you know, is very wide. And 6 credit hours can be in directly related content. And I've given a list of the kinds of things that are directly related to emergency management. Certainly, if you get a course in graphic emergency management systems, you are better acquainted with how to manage a disaster. Letters. People see letters after a name, and it helps to, as I said, give an indication of the capability of the person. So letters after a person's name, and my son works in cyber, I should know this. He's a network engineer, and he has several certifications in the cyber world, and I don't even know what they mean, but he has letters. And to get those letters, he had to take tests, he had to have training, and they are very recognizable within the field. What are the letters that are recognizable within the emergency management field? CEM is a highly recognized credential, but it took many years. It's over 25 years that CEM has been in existence. And it took many years for that credential to become recognized and desirable. So how do you get those letters? In an academic, you can get, many people have an MA or MS after their name, indicating that they have a master's degree. Certainly people that have a PhD or a Doctor of Science, a DSc, or an MBA, they're very proud of it because, as I can attest personally, it takes a lot of effort to become a PhD. That denotes completion of a formal program. On the practitioner's side, TQC, CEM, now CISSP, Certified International Security Specialist, professional. CBCP is also an emergency management, but it's more of a business continuity credential. But it denotes a level of experience in the field. Certification, and I will discuss accreditation, but certification is a third-party recognition of an individual's level of knowledge or proficiency. It denotes proven training and experience. It differs from licensure. Accreditation, similar to certification, accreditation, institutions are accredited. Every college, and I've shown you the map of the United States, and these are the accreditation, regional accreditation programs. New England, for example, is New England Association of Colleges and Universities. And I don't have the acronym exactly right, but each of those areas have an accreditation program which accredits the school, the college or the university, but they don't accredit the programs within the college or university. A nursing program within a college or university must be accredited by a nursing program accreditation program in order for nurses to become licensed after they graduate. If you don't graduate from an accredited nursing program, you may not become licensed. It's as simple as that. Few emergency management programs are accredited because there's no requirement for emergency management to be an accredited program. There's no requirement for academic program graduates to become accredited. it's just a separate issue. And as in certification, accreditation is a third-party process, a formal, detailed assessment procedure, which requires many man-hours within the institution. It requires a self-study in which they report evidence of quality, statistics of graduates, how the graduates have done in the world after they're getting their degree and so forth, before the the external evaluation by an accrediting agency. So TIEMS efforts are similar to IAEM's CEM program and to EMAP, Emergency Management Accreditation Program. That is not an education assessment. That is a community or a jurisdiction assessment. Colleges and universities can have an EMAP experience, but it's not an education assessment. It's an assessment of, is the university have sufficient plans to prevent a disaster at the university. Same for states, EMAP, and communities, cities within states get EMAP accreditation. Both programs were slow ramping up. For EMAP in the beginning, it was $6,000, more than $6,000 for the process. $6,000 for a town or city is not chump change, and it required, again, man-hour efforts. So over time, it became visible and there became notoriety of the program, and that's good notoriety, not bad notoriety. The value of the credential experience increased, and it was a tough row to hoe because there was no requirement for accreditation for communities either. I've given the websites at the bottom for each of the certifications that we're talking about here, accreditations, excuse me. So the development of United States standards, Wayne Blanchard at FEMA's EMI in Emmitsburg was instrumental in the growth of emergency management education. He was charged in about 1993 by Kay Goss, who was an associate director for FEMA for response and recovery. And she was very pro-education. She has a doctorate. And she charged Wayne at Emmitsburg, which is where the emergency management training was occurring, to develop, promote, grow the programs in emergency management across the nation in education. And they went from about 7 schools in 1993 to over 200 that are offering, as you see, the 330 programs. The higher education symposiums I discussed started in 2004 and got more and more formal, and finally had people step forward and say, we want to be part of this process. There was an emergency management focus group that FEMA paid for to come out and meet in Emmitsburg, and they wrote up a accreditation recommendation. There was a group of 3 that examined those tenets of assessment and went further and expanded it into what's called the next generation core competencies. And then TIEMS developed its standards over a number of years. The standards include a look at the institution and the administration supporting the program. Remember, the institution, college or university, is different from the programs within the university or college. The program objectives and curriculum structure. Again, as I said in the beginning, there was no external guidance that says, this is what you should teach. This is the minimum. And so the development of programs was all over the map across the nation. The third set of standards is the program content. That is specifically looking at emergency management. Now there is a similar standard for the Homeland Security, and 1.0 is the same, 2.0 is the same, and 4.0 is the Homeland Security standards. So I've mentioned listed four of them here. There are 4 standards, and that within the standards is a wide range of material. The next slide is going to talk about the foundations of emergency management, and these are 7 tenets that the accreditation process looks at to see if they're covering the range of emergency management instruction. SLO is a student learning objective. It's important to cover the range, or a wide range of emergency management. It's important to have all of these instructed to the students during the classes that they take. So what population values experience? If you looked at the hiring practices of emergency management programs at the state level, at the county level, at the city level, and I keep going down in size, but eventually pretty much every community of any size across the nation has someone looking at the risks and hazards and vulnerabilities of their physical location. Those are emergency management programs. It can be one person, it can be a small group, but as people were hired, the thing that became most important is, what experience do you have in the field? And they were hiring people who had experience more than they were hiring people who started to get trained and educated. What population values certification? In the hiring experience over the years, certification was an indication of skill level. And there were not, as I said, in 1993, it started ramping up. There were not a lot of educational programs anyways. So what population values experience? Are they mutually exclusive? No, they're mutually supportive to get a well-rounded individual who is capable of operating within the field. So we've had this first question discussed very often every year at the Higher Education Symposium. Should there be minimum standards? There's no requirement for standards. So should the college that's teaching 12 credit hours in emergency management have to redesign their program and come up to what we recommend is the 30? Do they want to take the time? Do they care? Or do they just want to put out graduates? Because it doesn't take long. It's not difficult to put out a graduate at 12 credit hours as opposed to a graduate who spends the time to really examine the field with 40 credit hours, 50 credit hours of emergency management content or related content. Should there be an experience requirement, internships and or co-ops? And it's been found very valuable for the person, the student taking the degree, to do an internship. And they also find, the student finds that their internship is a valuable attribute to their application for getting hired. Should there be an accreditation process? We think there should. TIEMS thinks there should. And that's what we have done over the years. The TIEMS website is TIEMS.education. That's because when we first started, the website was not available. So we were recommended to go education. So it's not TIEMS.edu, it's TIEMS.education. I will take your questions when Harald says it's time.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. You put focus on what is important in this field, and I agree. We have one question actually from so far from Sandro Bologna, who was actually the one formalizing TIEMS TQC certification, and he says, Larry, can you say some words about how TIEMS certification can be considered inside the tricky environment you have been describing, and how we should go further on this way?
Well, I'm going to simply say that, like CEM and like EMAP and other certification programs, without a requirement for certification, are slow growing. You have to keep making it visible. My presentation of TIEMS is an example of this. I've done presentations, well, many times now, and it becomes known and people start looking into it. We talk about it at the higher education program symposium every year, and it becomes more and more visible. There are people that disagree with certification with accreditation in emergency management program. They just out and out disagree. And it's through discussion that we find out, well, maybe we should change what we do or how we do it in order to satisfy a larger percentage of population without watering down our product. There are other people that agree with it. They're looking at accreditation, and we're seeing applications for assessment and accreditation in emergency management grow, but it's a slow road to hoe.
Thank you, Larry. I know that you, Vinod, has some thoughts about the future. How should we go further? And there are no questions in the queue at the moment, so please make your thoughts on how we should go further about this.
Actually, we have people like Dr. Larry and Dr. Sandro, Dr. Tom Robertson, and yourself, Dr. Roman. I think that, probably the next annual conference at EMI would be a very good opportunity to interact with FEMA and EMI to see whether, this possibility of what Dr. Larry was mentioning, accreditation with KMC and EMI, and possibly looking at their concurrence in accepting this process as something which is valid for humanitarian assistance practitioners and emergency management professionals would be a good idea. And we could start the discussions now with agencies, with national accreditation boards. That could also be a process which could happen parallelly. And maybe next year, when you have the annual conference, when we all get together, we could actually have one session which looks at this whole process of certification, recognition, accreditation, and Dr. Larry and Dr. Sandro could lead that. I think that would be one opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. We actually had that question from Sandro. He said, should we do this every year? And we have had a little session now since 2017, and we are growing our understanding and our professions in this. And myself, I believe in cooperation. And I'd just like to mention one thing. Larry told you that Kay Goss, she was the one really for putting this education in focus on emergency management. And we recognized that when we started TIEMS US chapter. So Kay Goss was our first president in TIEMS US chapter, and now she's an honorary member of TIEMS US chapter advisory board, so she's still with us. So another thing is, and you probably, for those of you who listen to Steve Recca, he invited us to Hawaii, discuss with the Pacific Disaster Center. And we also know that next year we will be at the Emergency Management Institute outside Washington, together with FEMA. So we will extend our cooperation both with FEMA, with PDC, and also with universities, because this is not something you go alone. And in this respect, Per Eriksson have come up with a question that I hope both of you can address. He say, would you please say something on the need for research specifically supporting this training and education? Who would like to go first?
Well, yes, there's a need for research. I don't disagree at all. If you're designing a program, I would hope you are not doing it in a vacuum. But there are programs that were developed in a vacuum. I was part of one in a previous college where they were designing a master's degree in business continuity. And there's like no recognition other than an MBA. There's no recognition that education for business continuity is a requirement. So they tried it. They designed the program. We designed the program. I was part of it. But the university did not stick with it long enough for it to become recognizable. We had several students. They started the program. I don't remember if they graduated or not, but you'd better research the field you're trying to teach in. And certainly TIEMS has been doing its research, not only with individuals, but designing accreditation process in the first place. I think that's it. Vinod?
Yes, I think that, we are seeing a lot of very interesting in multi-organizational research happening with EU-funded research happening in like the Horizon 20 and also the new calls which are there. It's very interesting to see this kind of research feeding into training and also certification, because I think there is a need for these to happen together. And so the RTD, which TIEMS has, research, training and development, is very interesting combination of all the three applied areas. We need to have more of university interfacing and also corporate interfacing and donor interfacing, because these three are very important. Universities, corporates and donors, we need to work with all the three, because multi-stakeholder engagement is actually, I think, the road ahead. We need to work with all partners, and research becomes important because research should actually identify and address the critical gaps which we are seeing around us. And all the presentations, I was seeing and listening to the presentations which are identifying some of the critical gaps. And we need to really see how research can actually focus on those areas where these critical gaps can be identified and addressed. So we see also a lot of platforms coming up, whether it is through FireIn, which was presented today, and the Fire Log and also the Fire Res and many others, including the Impetus. Some very interesting presentations will be happening tomorrow on the Impetus, and I think there is a lot to learn from that.
Yeah, thank you. There are no other here. I would, I'm very also concerned the TQC and TQC as it is today. That's a start of this certification. The idea and the goal was also that we should seek accreditation when we were ready. And in order to prepare for that, I went and talked with the Norwegian Accreditation Authority, told her, there was a lady, and I told her about what we were doing. And she found it very interesting, but she gave me one advice. That was, accreditation is a long process. It might also be an expensive process. So you better get some experience with your product, with people being certified and learning from that before you start an accreditation process. And I think she's right. So what we are doing at the moment, we are trying to get more people involved in the certification. I had a course actually telling about the international certification for École de Mines school, and I think there was about 15 international students, and I think they don't have any experience, but they had the proper education. And I felt there was an interest that when they leave the university, they need also to have if they can have a certification telling that they are proper, been through an examination, it might help their career. And I think SEM, you mentioned SEM, Larry, and I think today actually it might be a requirement in US to become an emergency manager that you are SEM certified. Can you say something about that?
Yes, I can. Actually, some schools, because part of the certification requirement for CEM is experience, like TQC. Many schools have moved toward preparing their students to take and pass the test, which is the same test for CEM and AEM, as part of their education experience, so that they can graduate with an academic degree and obtain a certification credential simultaneously. They move that direction, and they're finding they're very successful. If they're instructing the students well enough and wide enough in the scope of what they're instructing, students will pass the AEM or the CEM exam. I would like to make a small correction to your getting TQC accredited, the TQC program accredited. The correct term is recognition. TIEMS is working toward recognition as an accredited body. And recognition is by an accrediting sponsor. Department of Education will recognize nursing degrees, will recognize programs, will recognize engineering programs, so they get an accreditation from an accredited, a recognized body. TIEMS still has to do some accreditations in the Homeland Security field before the Department of Education will recognize us as an accrediting body. So TQC needs to move towards recognition as an accredited body. That gives you validity, and it supports the validity of TQC process.
Thank you, Larry, for that. You are more experienced in this than me, so thank you for that updating. I also like to go back to you, Vinod, because now you have become and will explore Asia for TIEMS. And I know India is a quite huge continent with different disasters, and I know you have also your own education, quite good institutions and schools in India. We have been talking about this together, but can you share with our audience today your thoughts? How would you now explore India and Asia with actually certification and education in this field?
This is actually very challenging, and we find that we have several hundred universities and several hundred institutions, teaching engineering, architecture, social work, and psychology, psychiatry, and so on. So we also feel that there is a need for bringing in the faculty members and students pursuing these programs and then bring them into emergency management by going through the certification process. And I feel that it will be good to start with some universities conducting some programs in collaboration with TIEMS and exposing the faculty members and students through the webinars and through the, some kind of a hybrid mode where we could actually bring in exposure to the people about this certification process. And that will actually create interest. And then, we could actually have more people participate in this. And I think we need to also begin with, other countries in the region, because we find that COVID has actually given that opportunity. If you look at Asia, not only just South Asia, but Southeast Asia and Far East and Central Asia, there is a need for opportunities. In fact, there was a question yesterday from Central Asia. They said whether TIEMS was actually having any plans to set up country chapters. So there was a question which had come in the chat. So I think there is also need for more country chapters, more participation, collaboration, and networking with educational institutions and with the national disaster management authorities. and provincial disaster management authorities, and institutional, interfacing with academic bodies and, agencies which are actually conducting that. So for instance, we may have the National Health Authority, which is controlling all the medical schools. And we may have we have an All India Council for Technical Education, which is handling all the engineering colleges in India. Similarly, all countries have various bodies, including the planning commissions or planning bodies. So we may need to really look at opportunities in many countries and then see whether we can actually have interactions with those who are responsible.
I will advocate, Vinod, that you investigate the standards, the minimum standards of what they're teaching in the institutions within India for education. If they're giving them a degree, how much quality does their program have? And if you establish an organization similar to TIEMS, then you will work toward improving the education for all of the students graduating.
Right. That's a very good suggestion. In fact, we would like to really understand those 4 standards which you mentioned, including the Homeland Security standards and, what you mentioned as 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0. I was taking notes, and I think we need to do that for all countries.
The website, TIEMS website, does have the latest draft documents will be adopted very soon, but the current documents for accreditation and for self-study are available on the website. Our bylaws are also there if you wish to look at that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Larry.
Thank you. We have had no further questions, nothing in the chat. This has been very interesting, and we should repeat this also in our coming conferences. So we develop all the time. And what my thoughts are, we now have a basic certification with examination in certain areas. We have selected 4, if you remember from my presentation. I see that one thing we need to do is also look into what other areas should we add in this and having examination. Maybe also looking into wildfire, looking into other type of risk where we also can provide some certification in these areas. I know they have their own education and maybe also certification, but what we like, at least in my mind, to have TQC like an international overview. So even if you are SEM certified, if you have national certification, you could add on our TIEMS international certification to your credentials.
Which is why I pursued TQC. And I advocate continually that TQC should focus heavily on international, not national.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We have another comment. Let's see.
Harald, can I also make 2 suggestions? One is that, the need for some kind of a faculty certification or a faculty quality improvement program for people who are teaching emergency management in many universities and many, educational institutions, including, schools of medicine, schools of architecture, engineering. It will be useful if we could consider that from TIEMS as a short duration program for faculty members to qualify and attend, participate, and then get certified. We could consider that, and that's one. And second is that, there is a whole lot of content available from all the 28 annual conferences of TIEMS on the website. So it would be useful if we could actually have these, widely disseminated for people to also access. for members, as well as, recommend people who are practitioners in emergency management to look at the content which is there, for so many annual conferences and workshops. It will be very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vinod. And I like to add too that I have also requests from the Middle East, from Dubai. We have a member in Dubai who is certified. His name is Nail Momani, for those of you who know him. And he has a request to actually train and certify police candidates in the Middle East, and he wants some program for them. So we often get questions like that, not necessarily do the whole TQC certification, but certify or do programs that are actually fit for those kind of candidates. So that comes up all the time. We got a comment and we got 2 questions. The one from Sheila. She say, I'm highly interested. Can we keep nurses in mind with this developing faculty training? I thank you in advance. You have a comment to that, Vinod?
Yeah. Shelina has made this comment, and I think that is very much needed for nurses, for people who are paramedics, and people who want certification and training programs which can actually improve their own understanding of the field. I think it will be very useful, and we've seen during COVID that healthcare workers need any opportunity for enhancing their skill sets. It will be very useful. Dr. Larry?
I will say, in terms of qualifications of instructors, as the question was posed in question and answer, the TIEMS accreditation assessment looks at, or actually requires the institution to report, or the program to report, the qualifications of the instructors in the program. How many, if any, are full-time? How many, if any, are adjunct? How many of them are teaching online? We ask for all those qualifications. In addition to, if you're doing a bachelor's program, a significant portion of the instructor staff should have master's degrees. If you're doing a master's program, that a significant portion of the instructors have a PhD or a terminal degree. And if you are doing a PhD program, that virtually all of the instructors have a PhD, although it's understood that the number of PhDs in emergency management is still growing fast. There are not a large population of PhDs holding emergency management degrees or concentrations, but it's still growing.
Yeah, we have a comment or a question from Charles Kelly. Good to hear from you, Kelly. It's a long time. He has been very much involved in TIEMS. We haven't seen him for a while. Good to see you back. But he says, note that the system for international humanitarian assistance can have significant differences from the system used within a country by the government or other national stakeholders. There is a convergence, but a lot of divergence. The distinction should be considered in framing the certification focus and content. As Dr. Porter noted, for the US, there are a number of opportunities to get academic and professional certification in the range of specialization in humanitarian assistance. Actually, Chandra has commented that and says national certification is considered as a prerequisite for TIEMS certification. So we are taking that into account, that they have a basic. We like to, like what you have done, Larry, take it in addition to your other certifications. But would any of you like to comment on this? Well, then we should go to, we are closing in on 5 o'clock. And I think we have had a very good discussion. And would you like to say some final words, Vinod? Start with you.
Yeah, there is another comment from Shelina.
Yeah, you can read it.
Yeah, she has said that since COVID, I have taught licensed practical vocational nurses here in Southern California, USA. As a Hurricane Katrina survivor and a healthcare worker, I have seen all the gaps within both academics and the professional field. Higher education has caused many of us not to be able to move forward, yet many of us have real world life experience. Can we take real world experience just as important as higher education? Textbook is not real life. That's a comment from her.
But that is actually, if you read the prerequisite, that is actually not only requiring education, but also experience or experience. So look at that, Shayla, and we would welcome you to start certification.
Yeah, and thank you very much. I would like to really compliment Harald for all the effort which you've been taking in conducting this session on certification, which is very important. And I feel that, more and more people in the humanitarian sector and also all those who are supporting emergency response, in different disaster typologies would need to also go through this certification. First responders, emergency practitioners, civil society people, in corporate executives, and even housewives. Actually, we find that there is a need for a lot of educated people who want to come into support as volunteers, participate in understanding more about what's happening to our planet, both in terms of disasters, climate change, extreme events. I feel that actually this is an opportunity, and I look forward to continued interaction with all of you, and also contribute in our own ways to improve the quality of professionalism within the sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. Some final word from you, Larry.
Well, it's been my effort to improve education and emergency management. And when I point out the example that I gave, that you can get a degree with a lesser effort or a degree with more effort in the instruction in the field. Hiring entities are not aware usually of the differences in the applicants in front of them. They don't investigate how much emergency management core content have you been instructed in? What is the range of it? Some hiring people will look at a transcript, but most probably don't. They're probably more interested in their internship or research, or excuse me, not research, but their experience, than they look at the range of content in the field instructed to them. I also would love to quote, tell you one of my other important things. We don't have any requirements for emergency management. Now, the hiring institutions, the jurisdictions now very much desire that their emergency managers get CEM or at least AEM, and the difference being the education requirement. But I maintain that when we have a disaster and someone's child dies because of a decision by an emergency manager, that community, that jurisdiction, that emergency manager, the mayor, they're going to get sued, wondering how that decision was carried out by a person who hasn't been well educated or certified in the field. When that happens, you're going to see a movement toward, well, we better make sure our people are certified, education, credentials, have experience in order to not get sued if they make a poor decision.
Thank you, both of you. I think we had a good discussion. We will continue this. We will strive and work towards improving whatever we do. And I like to end the session, but also remind you, we start 10 o'clock tomorrow, and the whole day tomorrow is devoted to the Impetus project. So you will understand, after tomorrow, you will understand This is about smart cities and how to make a smart city resilient. And teams participate in this project, but we have no presentations tomorrow. Our role in this is actually dissemination and communication, which we do tomorrow through TIEMS annual conference. And we also invite other projects to do the same, devote time to really go in details of the different projects. Thank you all for attending, and I hope to see you tomorrow for another day of TIEMS annual conference. Thank you.
Thank you.